Hello and welcome to the first episode of the GT House podcast. If you're watching us, you'd find us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us, you'd find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Basically, any online streaming platform you want, we're going to be there. So, on the first episode of the GT House podcast, we have the man, the brain, the man whose brainchild the GT House is, Mr. Kaustubh Tengodkar. Sir, please tell our audience how do you feel today, and I am sure we're going to have a blast today. And
I'm nervous the because I'm doing this first time, but and it's also a little bit hot. It's not raining here today, so
yes,
let's see how it goes.
the rain gods haven't been that good to us today because for the past couple of days we've been having bad rain in Pune. I mean, of course, it's not as bad as Bombay, I'm sure.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, so Kaustubh san, please tell the audience who is Katie.
Katie it's not so easy to define someone named Katie. Katie actually is my initials Kaustubh Tengodkar.
Right.
But I also happen to had a lot of Katies in my college days, so that name kind of stuck to me, and I think people prefer to call me Katie because it's much simpler to pronounce rather than saying Kaustubh Tengodkar. And I used to get pissed off when people used to, mispronounce my name. So I said, Katie is much better. At least you're not making, fun of that name. So most of my friends call me Katie. My parents call me Katie. My wife calls me Katie. My in-laws call me Katie. Almost everyone knows me by Katie. In fact, if you tell them Kaustubh hai kya, so they might not even recognize for first. So I mean, it's just an initial which just came naturally, nothing, no special, thing.
That's nice. That's nice. So, Katie-san, how did your, most of us, not most of us, all of us got this motorcycling ka kida.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I got mine when I was about 5-6 years old, with sitting on the tank of my dad's RX back then. What was your motorcycling ka kida?
Something similar to what you had. So my dad used to ride a motorcycle. He used to ride a Rajdoot,
Wow.
and he used to ride it every day to office for almost 30 years. And that was something really unique in those days because motorcycles were not common.
Right.
If I'm talking mid 80s, motorcycles were not so common. There were scooters, there were cars, but motorcycling was definitely looked slightly differently, and I think that is what came on. Before my father, nobody in the family
Rode a motorcycle.
rode a motorcycle.
Wow.
So that could be the only possible explanation. And I think what also interested me is that he used to take us out for these weekend rides.
Right.
So all of us, me, my mom, my sister, uh, used to pack all the lunch, breakfast, whatever, sandwiches and water bottles, go out, find a nice spot,
Oh, wonderful.
and enjoy your day. So I think, and I'm talking of the days when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Wow, you were super young back then. Yeah.
Exactly. So there was no sort of formal motorcycling or anything. I think till 2000 or so. So I'm pretty sure I got my motorcycling kida from my father. There's no other possible explanation. I had zero. No, none of my neighbors had cycle, and so I think that's the
That's
only
about
way. Yeah, that's the only about it.
So, what was your first motorcycle back then?
My first motorcycle was a moped, Hero Poke.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty popular in those days, especially with college going crowd, and
Absolutely.
I started riding in and around my place locality when I was 16. and I used to use that moped to just to get some bread or milk, or just find a reason to ride it.
Right, absolutely.
And my father, my mother, both were pretty strict, so they were very clear that you can ride, but once you are of a legal age. So the day I was 18, I told them that I want to buy something of my own. So he said, fine, you get your license and you can buy your
Buy
own
your own
motorcycle.
bike.
So that's when actually things started, and I got a my license. I didn't had a motorcycle of my own, and I used to borrow. My father used to ride a Hero Honda Street then.
Okay.
My friends had one of my friends had a Suzuki Fiero Gen 1, and then the other guy in college had Bajaj ka, the Caliber was
Caliber, yeah,
just
yeah.
introduced. So those 100 cc's were, typical bikes what
Absolutely.
we experienced in our initial days. Uh, I think that's about it. Those were most of the very common. We had only 3 or 4 bikes. I think there was Hero Honda, CD100, Splendor, Bajaj Caliber was just launched. Two strokes were already on the verge of decline, so people had them, but I didn't see much of them on roads as such.
Right.
Most common bikes was Hero Honda CD100, and RX100s were still a rage then. So my first motorcycle, if you say a proper motorcycle, was a Bajaj Caliber, which belonged to my friend. So he bought a motorcycle, but he couldn't ride.
Okay.
So he used to call me and he's like, let's go for a ride. So I used to ride the motorcycle. He used to be my pillion and we used to go.
That's where it all
Yeah,
started.
that's
didn't
when
it?
it's all started. And my parents were pretty cool. So once they knew that I am a safe rider, and I happen to know my limits, so they used to let me go on a weekend, short rides, 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers. That was
Oh,
allowed.
wow.
So weekend rides were pretty common.
Wow, that's rare because I know, like, even today where we stand, even my parents are pretty paranoid. They're like 100 kilometers. Oh, okay, yes, no, maybe. You still got a lot of
They were
convincing
paranoid, but
to
I think the first few rides I made sure I set a good, benchmark credibility, and then there was not many questions. So only thing you had to those days where there were no mobile phones or anything. So we had to rely on landline. Wherever you go, you make sure that you call them and tell them that you've arrived
Yes.
safely. And of course, we were using helmets back then also. So those days, even wearing a helmet was considered as that you were following the
following
safety.
the safety.
line.
Absolutely, back
So-
then. Yeah, that's something, because I guess that is the era where motorcycle riding gear wasn't very popular. It was there, but it wasn't very popular in India, I assume.
It was there. People were riding, not like that. People were not riding. Royal Enfield was popular back then also, and but motorcycling as an adventure or passion was not followed to the extent what is being done now. I think it could be due to the situation, or there were a lot of places which are not accessible also. If you're riding to Ladakh and there's no form of communication, you had to rely on physical maps.
Oh yeah, that was.
So roads and accessibility to mechanics, garages was very very limited. Even the petrol pumps were not like too many like what we have today. You will find a fuel pump maybe almost 1 in 5 or 10 kilometers. So
Absolutely,
it's not like a big deal that you are empty and you don't find a fuel pump. So those days you had to plan your distances, because I remember when we used to ride to Nasik, to my native place, and we used to plan how
plan
much
the road map. Yeah,
correct, exactly, because then they used to say कि हाँ यहाँ पे अभी road crossing railway crossing आएगा, so you'll lose
some
time there, and then you need to fuel up at this place because there's no fuel pump after that. So
oh my god, So like it was a proper plan.
So you had probably like between Mumbai to Nasik, which is about 150, 160 odd kilometers. I think there was only one spot before the ghats in Kasara that you could fuel up.
Right.
In the entire 150 kilometers, there were no
Fuel pumps back
no
then.
fuel
Oh my
pumps.
god. And today we have quite a lot of them on. We have got a big network of them now. It's pretty sorted out now.
So I think those days motorcycling was very, very premature. People were just using it as
A necessity
where they had to go. It was not used, definitely not used
as a
maybe there were few people, but maybe handful, not so much.
but not predominantly.
Not
it was
to
just,
an extent what we have today. So, and I think this continued till the time I reached my engineering college. I never had my own motorcycle for first 3 years. It was always beg, borrow, steal. So, but good part with college life is you always manage to find something.
Absolutely.
There's always that one nice friend who will say, "Arey chal re, माझी bike घे तो आणि जा." You ride my bike, just fuel. Fuel was also not expensive. When I first started riding my motorcycle to college, fuel was. I remember my first fuel pump. It was 18 rupees a liter.
18 rupees a liter.
18 rupees a liter. That was the only once I got it. The next week there was a fuel rise and it went to 24. And I was like, shit, it's gone up and I don't know. But 50 rupees, I used to get 2 liters of fuel. And I used to ride the Hero Honda those days. So it used to go about 70-80 kilometers per liter.
Oh my
so
god.
in 50 rupees you could ride every day from home to college. Plus the other things for a week without any hassle.
Oh my god, that's a dream to live today, man. Damn.
So we actually didn't need so much money, to ride in and around at least city. There was never an issue.
Never an issue, right.
Yeah.
But like coming to fuel prices today, we're skyrocketing to nearly $90 a liter.
Eventually, once you are on motorcycles, then you realize that you stop looking at fuel efficiency and fuel prices.
Yes.
You just make sure that
Your gas tank is full.
We started with 2 strokes, and now I ride a ESD, knowing that it's a guzzler.
Absolutely.
The only way we measure is we open the fuel tank and make sure that
Shake it a little.
The fuel should be there. You should see it with your eyes without using a torch.
है तो चलेगा.
चलेगा बस. So don't even rely on the fuel cost. So I mean, those were the days. That's how my early days of motorcycling was.
So Katie-san, 2 strokes or 4 strokes?
2 strokes. Always.
Any day?
Any day.
Any day.
Still.
Oh boy. Those motorcycles are fun to ride, aren't they?
Correct. I mean, there's a difference between a 2-stroke and 4-stroke in terms of riding. Luckily, the modern day bikes, I think they've managed to reduce the gap in terms of if you say power or acceleration or that feel, where you get the thrill of riding a 2-stroke. I think most of the modern day bikes have matched or even surpassed in many cases. But what I predominantly like 2-strokes for their simplicity. They were easy to maintain. If you know your bike well, there are very little chances that things could go wrong. They're low on maintenance, and like you said, they're fun to ride. I mean, give any rider a 2-stroke to ride for a day, he will not go back to 4-stroke for next 2 days at least.
Absolutely. Like I curse my dad even today that why. I remember he had an RX back then when I was about 5-7 years old, and by the time I got my brains about motorcycles, I was about 12-14, and I used to curse him every day from that day till today. Why did you sell that RX? I really loved that bike, a candy red RX back then, pristine bike. He sold it because he was getting out of the country for work and everything. But yeah, I curse him even till date. Why did you sell that bike? I love it. I would have ridden it today. But anyways, it's destiny, I feel, sometimes.
Correct.
So Katie-san, how was riding gear or motorcycling gear over the years as you've grown?
Back those days, it was pretty simple because there was no riding gear. There was no Google. There was no WhatsApp, no Instagram, no Facebook. So we had absolutely no idea what a riding gear was. So even though Western world had motorsports very well developed and they were using riding gear,
Right.
what they were using was not known to people in India.
True.
So we only knew that helmets is necessary, and in movies we saw that the racers, were wearing gloves and some sort of jackets, typically leather jackets.
Leather jackets.
So when we started riding, the idea was that you should have a helmet, which was half face was very common, full face was not. I would say the choices were very less.
Less. True.
Some gloves with just bare basic leather, no real protection. And for jackets, we used to use wind cheaters.
Wind cheater straight
Wind
up.
cheaters, straight up. So, because there were no jackets available.
Right.
And even if they must be available, they were not available, at common places. There were no stores, there were no riding gear stores. So first few years of my motorcycling, it was always long distance. We used to wear wind cheaters, good wind cheaters, which would take care of rain, wind.
Right.
That's it. But again, no real protection. I mean, it was
Absolutely.
all on us that we ride safely, and that's it. Hope that. But we also never thought, that there has to be something. We should wear something that in case we have had a fall. Luckily, we never experienced any such unfortunate situations where we felt that we should have had something.
Something back then.
And I think it's only in the earlier, later 2000, about 2007 to 10, I would say, where I started seeing people wearing jackets and gloves, and things started coming on. So 2005, my group of some of my friends from my group, they went to Ladakh and they said that they were buying jackets, and that's when first we saw some sort of real,
Wow.
some sort of protection.
Protection.
Not really, I wouldn't say they were motorcycling jackets. They were mostly leather jackets made from
Absolutely.
Dharavi, and which had some Harley Davidson written on it.
Oh,
Or something. Although none of them had a Harley ever, but
Ever.
still, I mean, this is how the gear was there. So I mean, there was no one. My dad never used any sort of
Riding protection.
riding protection. He had his half face helmet and he had his leather gear, which he used from start to end. So I didn't see him wearing anything else. And in
Right.
monsoons, he had his usual monsoon, the rain suit, what he used to wear, and there were gum boots, which used to be like knee high.
Absolutely.
So nothing special. I absolutely feel that there was no one to guide us. If you considered somebody from my age or my time, there was no one to guide us on what exactly riding gear has to be.
Right.
It is only that post 2005 to 2010, things
Evolved.
evolved.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel that is the era from 2005 onwards where motorcycling was taken seriously and a lot of people started riding more and the need and demand for protective gear started increasing, and that's how everything evolved from.
I think that one major change for riding gear was people riding to Ladakh, people riding up hills. So, because weather there is pretty harsh, not as similar to what we have in the Western Ghats. Not.
It's
nothing
unlike
compared. It's
the-
unlike the coastal
absolutely.
region. So, I think that prompted people to wear gear more from a weather point of view than a safety point of view.
True.
And I think then it started becoming a norm that people, motorcyclists, bikers riding to hills are wearing this. It also became kind of a statement that
True.
it's not just weather related or safety related. It also became a statement. So that sort of statement converted into a culture where You had to buy a gear. And I think then the point of safety came in where people really understood that, okay, I was wearing this jacket and I had a fall and I actually,
This saved
didn't
me.
suffer anything. So
Exactly.
probably this was the jacket. So when these sort of, experiences went across the community, that's when people started understanding that the purpose of this is not just, whether predominantly for safety.
I feel along with that, it was a lot of Western influence and a lot of movies that came out in and around that area. Now, something from like Doom. I think that
Yeah,
is where.
exactly. But even if you see Doom, if you watch carefully, I mean, I don't remember the actor.
I think it was
Ali Bhai doesn't wear
Ali Bhai,
anything.
yeah. Actually,
Ali Bhai wears a bandana, but
bandana.
there's nothing. Ali Bhai-
Absolutely.
and Ali Bhai is riding a little class motorcycle.
Yeah, it was a bandit,
Ah.
a 1000cc bandit back then. Yeah.
So
Oh boy, yeah. But I feel that was that one Indian movie that inspired a lot of people to buy big bikes. Along with that, buy protective gear, buying jackets, pants, and boots. Because I feel most of us didn't know what they were. That was the first time I saw someone wearing this. I was like, why is this guy looking like a robot? And that's where the curiosity rose to understand what is this, and acha, this is why you wear it.
correct. So I remember when I wanted to buy my first full face helmet. So local shops only had half face, and very rarely people used to keep full face helmets. There was one shop which was located in South Mumbai, and they were known to keep some imported brands and higher end full face helmets also. So I told my friend, let's go and buy an helmet. Now a helmet those days typically you used to half face helmet would cost you around 300 to 400 rupees, a good one. Full face would cost you around 800 or 1000 max. And we went to this store, it was called as Alibhai Premji Tire Wala. It's still there in Grant Road. And he had massive collection of helmets. We had no idea what to look for. In fact, I ended up buying a helmet which was loose, not even a proper fit, but I still bought it. And I paid some 2000 rupees
Rupees
for
for
that
it.
helmet.
Wow.
So my friends were like, "Arey, tu खूप पैसे खर्च कर you spent a lot. Do you think it is necessary?" So I said, if I'm buying a helmet, I might as well. So unknowingly, knowingly, I ended up buying a good, or I would say a higher spec helmet than what I actually needed.
Absolutely.
And then once my friends saw that I am able to ride across comfortably in rain, they were all on half face helmets. Then they also said, no, we'll also
Upgrade.
and go for a full face helmet. And so that's how for us it was all trial and experience, with no real guiding factor.
Guiding factor. Yeah, back then it was very difficult to get.
And we
all
never
that.
really bothered to go and search somewhere that what kind of motorcycle riding gear we should wear. This was never a point of discussion ever.
Absolutely. But it just came out along the way with trial and error, and that's how things evolved for you.
I would say, in my motorcycling journey, I had some sort of a break in between when I got married. I shifted from Mumbai to Pune for work and got settled here. So those 4 5 years I was not riding at all, zero motorcycling. And then when I started again in 2009, it was like kind of starting again from scratch. So back to zero. You do you get back on motorcycle after 4 years. You still have to go through the same thing
Absolutely.
again. Okay, you know how to ride a motorcycle, but the confidence, the way you shift gears, the way you handle the bike, braking, everything takes time. So, and that's when I saw, oh, now the motorcycling seems to be a little different. There are groups, there are
Right.
motorcycling clubs. Then you have forums on Team BHP and Yahoo, and and then there's a lot of things that you can research because Google was
It was there.
pretty active by then, and you could search things and you could buy things online. And one of the rides I saw, people fully geared up, and so my first impression was this guy is going for some war because he was fully armored and there was absolutely no part of him visible. But then when we searched, we realized, this is something who's become a basic norm. Not the norm, it's needed. And I told my family that I now need to buy a riding gear again. I can't use my same helmet what I bought back then.
Absolutely.
I had to throw all of them. So I started buying gloves. The first gloves what I bought was pro biker gloves like everyone else. So I think I spent about 400, 500 rupees. I got a higher end Vega helmet for 1800, 2000 bucks, and I thought I spent quite a lot. Uh, I got a, I went to Cramster for buying a jacket and they didn't had my size. So there was no S. They said, आमच्याकडे M च्या खालती विकत नाही. Uh, then someone told me about Planet Sports DSG, so I bought a DSG jacket. So DSG jacket, Cramster pant, I bought full gauntlet gloves. I got winter gloves. I got riding boots. So my gear was pretty much sorted, and I had never tried these gears. I mean, you just try it once at the store to see how it is. But again, back then there was no guidance that how a riding jacket should fit. Shoulders कहाँ आना चाहिए, कैसे होना चाहिए. So you try it like a normal, like how you buy your clothes. So ठीक है, ये fit हो रहा है, ये पैंट waist के लिए ठीक है. And once I started with that riding gear, eventually I realized this is not the right size for me. I have bought something which is uh, highly uncomfortable, not fitting me well, and it's sweaty. There's no mesh pan. The jacket had absolutely zero mesh
Oh my
panels.
god.
And then they were claiming that this is a waterproof jacket, so we had those liners.
Right.
So first ride I went with my both the liners, rain liner and winter liner. I had no idea that I had to take them off for a normal ride.
Oh boy.
So the first ride was like full sweat.
You were drenched but in
I
sweat.
was drenched in sweat. So then I removed the rain liner, thermal liner, and so on. So I mean, for me, the learning was by my own experience.
Yeah, we've heard about this that a man learns from his mistakes, and that's how I feel all of us learn. Like we buy something, we realize it doesn't fit us right, and then we assume we make sure that we don't do the mistake the next time.
Funny thing was, I bought winter gloves from Cramster, thinking that I'll use them in Bhutan, and that was the first time when I wore those gloves. So, and in Bhutan directly, I had never tested those gloves
Nothing
on a
at all.
motorcycle ever before. So first day we rode to Bhutan, we enter. The second day it starts getting cold and so on. So it gets colder and colder. And I take out my gloves from my saddlebag, and I had absolutely no feel of the handlebar. I couldn't even judge about
my
clutch
God.
and lever, and I said, this doesn't work. I'm not at all comfortable with these gloves. I cannot feel the levers at all, and I am going to end up banging this motorcycle somewhere because I couldn't.
Oh my
I
God.
couldn't even control it properly. So I took off the gloves and I rode the entire Bhutan with the other gloves, which were like they had a lot of mesh. So both rains and winter, I just rode with frozen hands.
Oh my god, they move so.
And those gloves, when I came back, I just kept them and they were there for a long time. And eventually they hardened up and they cracked. So
Ouch.
those days, I think I spent some 2.5 or 3 grand for those gloves, which were never used. So I bought a lot of gear like this, which was never used, not practical, not useful, ill-fitting. And I spent a lot of money not just on gloves but also on other stuff. So helmets, again I bought a helmet which was not really well fitting. And I think eventually then someone told me, "Arey, then you need to buy a helmet which like sits really
Snug.
snug, and then it will adjust. And even if you buy leather gear, it will break in and it will adjust. So you need to make sure the fitment is proper. If you're wearing jackets, you should check if the protectors are coming at the right
Right
place."
place.
So that happened very later for us. So
Right.
and then I said, that was a point where I said I really need to study this, because by then I had spent a lot of money on buying stuff which was not useful,
Right, absolutely.
not compatible with my dimensions. So
Dimension.
that is one area where I felt, if somebody would have been there to guide us, then it would have made a huge difference back then. But now I think it's easy. You have lot of material, lot of information available, especially on YouTube. All you have to do is just Google, and now also you have lot of options available in terms of riding gear.
True.
So my first riding jacket cost me 7,000 rupees, and what I see today, you have riding jackets starting as low as 4.5 or 5,000 rupees.
Absolutely, yes.
So gear has actually become more affordable down the
years.
line.
Yes.
How people have managed that, I don't know. I can't explain that, but I think it is. We have gear which is suitable for India, which is suitable for our kind of weathers, with more mesh, with more options. So those days we had only one or two options. Now I think you get at least 10 options if you go for budget
Absolutely.
riding gear.
You have an array of them.
So people are spoiled for choices, and you can choose whatever fits your budget, fits your size, fits your preference in terms of colors.
Yes,
So
there's
there's
a lot
a
of
huge
variety.
difference. If I see motorcycling riding gear today and 20 years back, there's a huge difference. Huge in terms of everything. So
Yeah, I mean it's evolved, and it's evolved for the betterment. I feel it has.
yeah, I think it will keep evolving for next years, because I still see there's a lot of gap in between what people use in US, or let's say Europe, and what people use here. The concept of riding gear is still different. So I think it is evolving, still at a premature stage in India. People understand that they need riding gears, but they still don't understand what kind of gears they should really buy for what. I mean, most of the people buy gears because they need gears.
Exactly.
They don't buy what is necessary for them. And I see a lot of people buy something purely on based on price, or purely on based on looks, something which looks good on Instagram, or something which uh, sometimes they end up buying more than what they need.
True. True. It happens. So all I know, because I feel today strongly that we need to understand the difference between like most of us in India are cost driven. Like if you want to go to buy something, we first thing आता है, दिख रहा है ठीक है अच्छा है, but है कितने का? They would not try to understand what goes into it.
Correct. I think there's the differences in what you want and what you need.
Exactly. Exactly. Spot on.
So that if you can match, there's nothing wrong in choosing your gear according to your budget, because that's what you can afford, that's what you can buy. So you can't look for something which is way on beyond your budget.
True.
Can and you should know your budget very well, so you can at least plan the gear accordingly. Maybe everything doesn't come in one go, maybe you can buy it in phases or upgrade eventually. So there's nothing wrong in choosing your gear as per budget, but at least a few things like the fit has to be perfect, and people also need to understand for what purpose they are going to use. If you just say that I am going to buy a jacket for motorcycling, that's a very general and vague term, because it's like A good example would be if you buy clothes. Do you buy same clothes for going out, for or at home, or if you're going to bed at night, you have different set of clothes,
Absolutely,
right? Different
yes.
set of clothes as per different seasons, different occasions. And riding gear is something similar. So there is no one perfect gear which will
Fit all the three seasons and everything.
three seasons or occasions. So depending on where you are going to, what kind of motorcycle riding you are into, you will have to find your gear.
Absolutely. That's also another thing that we always feel that मैंने अगर ये खरीदा है, ये मेरे को, मैं ये तीनों चीज़ें गर्मी में भी मैं यूज़ करेगा, मैं इसको बारिश में भी यूज़ करेगा, मैं इसको ठंडी में भी यूज़ करेगा. बट व्हेन पीपल डोंट अंडरस्टैंड नाउ समथिंग लाइक अ वाटरप्रूफ ग्लव, you can't really wear that during the summer because it's gonna make you sweat on the inside.
So that this part, I think this part of maturity has still yet to come in India. It's coming, and it's coming thanks to, because of different kinds of different genres of motorcycles that are coming in. So today we have motorcycles which people, manufacturers advertise that this is an adventure motorcycle. So you have a gear which is suitable for adventure. Then this is a sports motorcycle, so you have gear which is suitable for sports. You have a track motorcycle, you have a touring, you have cruisers, you have your classics. So
Right.
it's good that manufacturers are segregating, and this defines what kind of motorcycling, what kind of thing the
Absolutely.
motorcycle can do, and where you can ride in what conditions. So the gear also will be different.
Yeah, they're creating filters and helping
So
manufacturers.
this I think will come in the next years, and it will come pretty fast.
I mean, I hope it does come faster than what it looks like, because I have seen now, I've been I've been riding for about 4.5 years now, and in this span of 4.5 years, I have seen gear evolve. I have seen I did the same mistake as you. I bought a helmet that is loose for me, but again, I learned from my mistake, and then I upgraded to a helmet which fits me right. But when I went to buy my riding gear, there weren't too many stores out in the city back then. And today, where I stand, I know that there are at least about a dozen of them, and people are spoiled for choice. They're like, मैं कहाँ जाऊँ, मैं क्या खरीदूँ? So like back then, people knew what it is, but there wasn't the right gear. Today, there's so much gear that people don't know what is right and what is wrong.
Correct. I mean, today you have a gear which also looks good, apart from
Exactly. I mean,
providing you safety. And when I take out my old jacket, and people look at me, "Arey, this guy has probably come from a Jurassic age, and he's wearing some really ancient jacket."
Ancient jacket. Oh boy, I understand that.
But okay, I mean, it's
Old is gold, I feel,
Things happen, so new has to come.
True. So, Katie-san, how did you get into this business? When in that point, and when did you find that situation where you were like, "Nee, I need to make this right. I need to get into this." For what was the reason?
So I never thought that I'll get into a riding gear business, or something what we are doing right now at GT House. And I was working for a good multinational company till the time time point came where I felt I had to do something more. And I always had that itch to do something of my own. So I knew that I wanted to start on my own, but what was never decided. I never had that in my mind कि क्या करना है. Post 35, this itch grew pretty large, and it grew pretty fast also. So that's when I decided to call quits to my usual corporate jobs. I had traveled quite a lot by then. Those, if you say, my prime days in as a corporate guy, I used to travel 15 to 20 days in a month.
Wow.
Used to travel well across India. So I had done a lot of traveling, and I chose it because I used to like traveling. So I said, let me, this is enough now. I need to do something else. something which, where I learn something new, where I do something different. I'm not meeting the same guys, not the same meetings, not the same shit that you handle every day. So I called it quits one fine day and I said, let me take a break. And sabbatical was a
New term back then.
new term back then. And then I said, I'm taking a sabbatical. 2 महीना कुछ नहीं करने का, 6 months you don't do anything. And we'll think क्या होता है वो. And my family supported me. They said, fine, it's your call. You know what you are doing and you are responsible at the end of the day. So I took a break and I said, let me go for a short motorcycle ride first, as like all
Enthusiasts
been, aching to do a motorcycle ride. And those few years I was not able to do any good rides. So 2012 I had done Bhutan and then some short rides, and then there was again a gap where I was not able to do any, I would say, significant motorcycle rides. There were rides mostly which were in and around city and weekend rides, nothing to boast of. So I said, fine, it was month of Feb. I said, I can't go up mountains, I will go down south. Usually the weather is still nice in Feb. So I started, I just took a random route and went down south. And that's when, I came up in Bangalore, I was welcome at a store where they had nice cafe and a motorcycle riding gear accessory store. And I saw the place and I was like, oh, this looks so cool. I would love to have something like this one day. So that was probably the first place where I saw, and I was attracted that this is something, a place, this similar kind of place I wouldn't mind, where people who are coming in and you have some sort of events and you're selling multiple stuff. And I continued with my ride, and then post the ride I was thinking, what अभी करने का क्या, अभी तो हो गया, राइड भी हो गया. Then I came across a brand and I was, they were looking for dealers across, it was a motorcycle accessory brand. So I just approached them casually. I said, can I help you with, I'm sitting free, absolute nalla, doing nothing. And since I'm, based in Pune, Mumbai is pretty
Accessible.
accessible, so I can find stores. So I asked them what kind of store. So they said, okay, this is the kind of store what we want and we could keep those products. This is the price, this is what they get. And I said, fine. So I started going around and I said, fine, I'll charge you a fixed fee, and if it clicks, we continue. And it clicked. So I started from Mumbai. I started visiting stores. I started understanding stuff. I spoke to a lot of store owners. I understood how the market works. And luckily for me, a lot of store owners, they kind of gave me a lot of information. Probably I had the right set of questions. And I was able to figure out how this business works pretty fast. So I said, if I'm going to XYZ store for XYZ product, why can't I go with another product to the same store? So anyways, I'm going to that store. So I took up another brand and I said, I am anyways going and I have these stores. I know them and I can help you list. And that's how things added. I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and came to a number where I had 8 brands.
Wow.
Marketing, traveling all around, and it was more or less the similar stuff what I used to do before. So in my previous days, I was an industrial sales engineer. The only difference was there I was selling high-end engineered products, and this was riding gear. And this was no different, only the customers were different, the crowd was different. So I did this for good 3 years. I got to know market very well. I got to know who's who in the business. I got to know what customers want, how it sells, what kind of problems you want. I understood how this thing works, how people are actually buying it and So that's when I decided that, after 3 years now I should start on my own rather than selling someone else's product. And I already had few brands in my mind, and that's how the whole GT House thing came
Oh.
into place. So
That's how it went. It was,
correct. So I already had built a network. There was a good database, there was good market knowledge, good market information. I saw potential, and I said, let me start with this. I mean, when you already know people and how it works, you know the chain, how it goes on, it's not very difficult to start something like this of your own.
Right.
And good part is today, because it's an open market, what comes from where, what kind of riding gear you need, and you can talk to companies and approach them and ask them if you can represent them in place like India. And luckily, we have tremendous potential. There's a huge market. India sells about 1.7, 1.8 million two-wheelers every year.
true.
And I'm not sure out of that what percent really wears riding
Riding
gears, or
At least I feel.
I mean, I'm not sure about that statistic, but I'm pretty sure it is very, very minuscule.
True.
So there's a potential, definitely, but at the same time, you also have a lot of competition. So,
Absolutely. And exactly, over the years, competition has
correct.
grown.
So, but that is there in every field. So you just need to work out your way.
Absolutely. You need to work out a strategy, and that's
Strategy,
how it all
so-
works, isn't it? So, Kirisan, what is the GT House exactly? Please tell our audience.
GT House. So again, the name was not shortlisted. The legal name what we have is much different. It's not GT House. We were looking for something which we could call our name. Call the business, and we wanted it to be attractive. Now, my first startup had a German name, and half of the guys couldn't even pronounce it well. So I said it has to be easy. It has to be connected with people who are going to buy it. So customers should understand. So gear and throttle were two words. There was also moto, which was shortlisted, but then moto is a very common word nowadays. So you have moto. A lot
Moto
of people
everything,
using
yeah.
moto. So I wanted to avoid moto. So gear and throttle is what I came up with. And this place, what we are running right now, GT House, was like a house.
Yes.
So we said gear and throttle house, because the place resembles a house. So we just said fine. I mean, gear and throttle house sounds nice, a place where people are comfortable to buy riding
Riding
gears. So at GT House, we import 3 brands: Shima, which is from Poland; Racer, which is from France; and Zandona, which is into protectors, and it's from Italy. So we started with 3 brands, and we are still with them. And at GT House, we are importing and distributing. We started with distributing the brands first to major cities like Pune, Bangalore, Mumbai, and now we also have a retail store here in Pune.
Pune. Yes, and it does feel like a paradise for motorcyclists. So yeah, it like the house gear and throttle house does it defines what we are and how
Okay,
it
so
goes.
that was the idea. I mean, you have a place where people could come, relax, not
Absolutely.
get paranoid about buying stuff because like I see, I used to think that for me it was difficult in choosing riding gear because there was no one to guide on. But I think people today have more bigger dilemma because there are so many options that
Exactly.
they really don't know what to go for.
It's a very big question.
So it's even more confusing for people to buy a riding gear. So
Exactly.
I wanted to create a place which is slightly different from others and could guide people properly on what exactly to buy. So that was my idea. I wanted that comfort factor to reflect in the name. That's why, I mean, if you go to your house, your home, you're always comfortable, right?
Exactly.
So that's why the house, gear and throttle house.
And it's a wonderful setup here. I mean, I'm sure people should come in even more and check it out. Because I know people have come in by now, and more are going to come in after this podcast goes out, but it's a wonderful place, and it is a badass setup to start
Correct,
off with.
correct. So we started with distribution first, and then a lot of customers said, "Why don't you start retail? I mean, we would like to buy." So people were already coming and buying stuff, but we had a kind of a warehouse set up, and then they said, if you retail, we will buy from here. And there was also a point when I went out in the market and people said, "Arey, ye nahi bikega." You don't understand the difficulties what we face when we are selling it to customers. And at first I took it offensive, but when I thought about it, coolly, calmly, I said, maybe this guy really faces some challenges while selling this gear, and I can only do it when I sell it actually. So I requested one of the store that can I stand here and sell my stuff, and he was kind of
In two minds about it.
no, he's like कि आप आके बेचोगे like he was not sure because I think nobody asked him that question. So I told him that I just want to understand. He's like, no, I cannot allow you to do that because you are an importer, you shouldn't do all these things. So I said fine. That came an idea where I said ki, let me start with my own. So the first concept was to start an experiential center where we experience what customers want.
Right.
And the first name what we said was Gear and Throttle House Experience Motorcycle Riding Gear Experience Center.
Oh my
okay,
god.
that was a very big long name. But then as we went, we obviously dropped the experience part, but the idea was to provide people an experience while buying gears. So,
Right.
and because I had traveled quite a lot outside India, so you have a specific if you go to malls in Europe or even riding gear stores, you have a different way on how they display their products, how they sell their stuff.
True.
Even if you go to some airports, like I went to Singapore airport, and there was a very nice way, how you check in, how you put your bags, where you wait, and how you board. And it's much simpler as compared to our local Indian airports or even airports outside in Europe.
True.
And then when I researched, they said that there was a study done, and this airport is one of the best airports because passengers, flyers take the least amount of time at the airport.
True.
So they prefer to fly through this airport.
Right.
And somebody told me that there's a study on how the customer will enter the airport, where he will turn, whether he'll turn left or right, what will he do after checking in, which possible places it could go. And there's a study where you completely see the flow of his passenger, flow of the passenger movement. And then you design stuff accordingly.
Oh my god.
Which is why which is why you see duty free and some nice stuff at the exit of the airport.
True. Yeah, it's placed its eye candy to you when you're leaving.
Even the shopping malls, when you check out or when you are at the billing counter, you will have something which is on your left or right, just next to the billing counter, and you will have chocolates and
True, and all the
gums and
appetizing
cigarette
stuff,
lighters,
yeah.
and fast moving stuff. You just end up picking stuff which you don't need,
Absolutely.
but you end up doing a lot of impulsive. So these is all related to a proper. You study what the customer wants and how it behaves and how it moves. And so I tried to apply this here, and the idea was to see what customer wants when he's coming to buy riding gear. How does he want to try it, or what kind of options does he want? Does he want to be spoiled with choices? Does he want to see a lot of colors? Does he want to be comfortable? Does he want a nice couch to sit on and see? Do we need a screen which is screening some MotoGP or motorcycling related content? Do we need a music? So these all things were always on my mind when I started this. And because I had already traveled to a lot of stores, so I knew what works, what doesn't work. I've seen stores which are not like huge in size, small stores, basic setup, nothing fancy, but they do a very good sale. And then I've seen stores which are like massive setup, uh, top of the line furniture, expensive lights,
Like they've
and
put up a lot of money into
a lot of
architecture.
money into architecture and can consider them as white elephants from a maintenance point of view, prime locations, and they're not doing great. So I said there has to be something, there's something wrong. I mean, how can a guy with a better setup not sell?
Yeah, it's weird.
So there has to be a proper balance and a match between how you are selling it and how you are displaying it, and that's what
There has to
GT
be a
House.
balance.
So GT House, we wanted to have an experience center not just from customer but also mainly from a distribution point of view on how you should keep stuff and know how you can sell it. So that was the main idea behind starting GT House.
But it's hands down one of the most innovative ideas I have ever seen. I've visited quite a lot of motorcycle stores. As you said, the white elephant ones, even those, and they look pristine, but sometimes you're a little hesitant. But here you feel like you're at home. When you enter, you're like, now you can take your own sweet time, look at gear, feel it, understand it. Because again, you're going to put in money for it. So experiencing that gear, wearing it for a while, understanding how is it going to fit you is very important.
Correct. And when I visited all these stores, I learned lot of good things from the store owners on how they are pitching products to customer, what works, what doesn't work. So they had good things also, and they had bad things also, and they had some things which I knew will not work for products like what we are keeping here at GTR. So we had to choose what works with respect to brands. There's no one single strategy that I'm doing something here at GT House, the same thing will work for another store having a different brand. Every store will have to have their own strategy, have their own things worked out, and a lot of stores are already doing it and they've been pretty successful with that. There are stores which don't look nice, but they have a fantastic sale. I mean,
Absolutely.
you still manage to do it, and if you're, as long as you're able to do it, nothing wrong.
I feel that it is a word of mouth as well that helps you big time. Like in terms of the not only the store but the people inside the store also help you a lot, and there's a trust that's built when you're talking to somebody, you're having a conversation, and if you're mutual motorcycle, like a motorcyclist comes in, you build up a connect, and eventually you end up buying something which is very good for you, and the person in front of you also helps you out. So I feel that mix is something that you've mastered here at the GT House very well. Being a motorcyclist yourself, because I have seen anyone who comes in, builds a connect, and you give him what is right for him. You don't look at it from a very profit driven perspective, and that is a very
It's not like that. I'm pretty commercial minded. I mean, at the end of the day, I still look at numbers. But I'll give you an example. When I came here to Pune and I wanted to look for a place for myself on a rent, so I used to tell those agents that I need a place in and around this area in this budget, and he used to completely show me exactly opposite of that. And I used to get frustrated. अरे मैं तेरे को क्या बोल रहा था और तू क्या दिखा रहा है मेरे को नहीं चाहिए ये. It's like नहीं देख तो लो अच्छा है. I said fine, I will have a look, but I am pretty sure what I want. And how difficult is it for you to just find something what fits my definition, or you just say that you don't have it, but just don't show me things. So that is one thing I understood, that if you are not showing things what customer doesn't want, then that's definitely not the ideal situation.
absolutely.
So you should have stuff, and here again at GT House we're trying to make things, keep things what customers want.
Right.
Maybe not all, we probably won't be able to satisfy 100%, but we are definitely trying to see a specific market where we are able to satisfy at least for those target segment.
Absolutely. Katie-san, is this? I mean, I've seen this, at a couple motorcycling events that we have, you started off the GT House at a motorcycling event. Like that was the first time where you displayed.
We started at Rider Mania last year, and that was, we said we'll, why do we announce or launch at some store, or or on social media? Why don't we do it at an event where you have maximum people? And these are, something like Rider Mania or IBW, these are one of the main motorcycling events in
True.
the country. So we said this couldn't be a better place to launch your products. This couldn't be a better place to experience what customers want. So you have people coming from all places, from all over cities across India, and you have different kinds of customers. You have budget, you have medium, you have premium guys, you have a guy who's riding a 150cc motorcycle, you have a guy who's riding a liter class bike, you have a guy who's riding a Harley or a Tiger or whatever it is. So this is a place where you understand what works. So we went with some few products, few things to display on. We just tried working, on what probably could work for us. And that was a good event. I mean, we could figure out what works, what doesn't work. So we definitely knew what not to get.
Absolutely.
And we also knew, what kind of, customer reaction would come if we are putting some product at an XYZ price, or, colors or a display. So it's an easy way for you to, figure out what market wants. Quick and easy
Absolutely,
way.
yes, true.
Not an easy. I mean, going to Rider Mania and IBW was a painful affair. Taking all the stuff from Pune to Goa and again back with all the display stuff,
Oh
and
my god.
make sure the gear is all displayed properly, clean it every day, and ensure everything is packed at end of the day, and come back and in between have your typical Goa night.
I get it. Yeah, it was.
But okay, it was an experience like everyone else. We experienced it and we learned a lot of things
Absolutely.
from it.
How was IBW for you?
IBW was good. Lot of customers, lot of feedback, lot of suggestions, and most important was for us. We got the confidence that whatever we are trying to do is working. So based on the customer reaction, we went ahead from that point. I mean, that was a point where there was no retail for us, and that's when we also could make connections. I mean, it's easy. You have a lot of store owners walking in. People see their product, and they keep talking to their friends and in groups, so they know. So that's the best place, for you to display or introduce
Absolutely.
your product. It's not the first time that some brand has launched. There have been many product launches, brand launches at events like IBW or Rider Mania. So we just followed what, it's a tried and tested method. We just followed what others did. So
But yeah, IBW was fun. IBW was a blast, and I'm sure. So, Katie-san, what is going to be the future of the GT House for you?
I really don't know.
The sky's the limit.
No, not from I mean, of course we are looking to grow. Of course we are looking to add things. We want to cater and serve as many customers as we can. But having said that, after COVID, things have changed drastically.
Drastically.
We're definitely not looking at a budget side of the market, not because there are already too many players, and there are good options available in the market. Good 4 or 5 players. So that's where we are not looking to enter. We're looking at specific segments. We're looking at specific sectors, even geographical areas where we want to work with. And the idea is to expand more in terms of experience rather than just adding brands or products.
True.
So we don't know how it's going to be. We don't know what happens next 6 months, 1 year. The scenario has already changed post COVID quite a lot.
True.
So we're gonna take our time, we gonna wait. We want to see how the market responds, and then we will take steps accordingly. But definitely, one thing what we are looking at is making long-term relationships, either if it's customer or even our partners, whoever we work with, whether it could be distributor or a stockist or a dealer. If we would like to work with someone who wants to be with us for a really long period of time, because it's not just doing a me giving product to you and you selling it somewhere.
True.
It's also investing your energy, effort, time, passion, and it's not just me. There's set of people in and around me, from a GT House side as well as from the partner side. So when you are investing something like this, you rather work for a longer period. That's
Absolutely.
where you earn your loyalty. That's where you earn your respect. That's where, at the end of the day, I would like to get satisfied with whatever things I have done for the day. Go home peacefully, have a nice meal with my family, spend some time with them, and have a peaceful sleep. I shouldn't have that thing in my mind that no, it was not a good business today. So every day, if I get an order today and if it's been shipped to customer and customer has received it and he's given me a good feedback, that gives me a sense of satisfaction that yes, everything has fallen its place,
Place.
and that's my final, you could say,
That is your level of satisfaction.
that is my level of satisfaction, where I have I get my peaceful 8 hours of
8 hours,
sleep,
right.
and I am charged up next day
Next
to
day,
do something
yes,
more.
let's do this again.
Let's do this again, let's do something more. So that is what I am looking at. We are not looking at exponential growth. We are not looking at too aggressive strategies. We want to go coolly, calmly, and we want to have as many partners as we can, uh, whether it is partners from outside or having even local tie-ups with riding gear brands. We're open to all sorts of ideas, suggestions, and tie-ups.
That's one part I love about you, Kirisan, is you're always open to ideas. Let it be Shubham telling you something in terms of graphics, or let it be me giving you ideas about social media or a product. You're all ears for all of
So
this.
we are open to ideas. My message even to, if there's a budding or somebody who's inspiring to be an entrepreneur, wants to get into business, wants guidance, they're free to talk to me. If somebody is going to start something or a brand who wants to approach GT House, we are open. There's no hesitation from our side to to do or not do business. As long as it's a win-win situation, GT House will have its door open for everyone who wants to associate directly, indirectly.
That's a
And it
wonderful
could be, it need not be a premium store, it need not be a standard store, riding gear store. It could be some tier 2 city, it could be somebody from tier 3 cities far away from usual metro cities.
Right,
so
right,
so
right.
we are open to all sorts of ideas and suggestions, and we want to take it how it goes. No fixed plan.
That's wonderful, Katie-san. I say on that note, we wrap up the first podcast episode at the GT House. Did you have a blast today talking?
Pretty long, I think. I don't know how long we spoke. Yeah.
Well, as I said, once you start talking, you just go with the flow. Well,
Correct.
I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah,
I had a
pretty
blast.
much.
I had a blast. I got to know you a lot more, and I'm sure our audience got to know you a lot more.
Great.
And thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we're gonna come back with a lot more content. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're listening to us, do subscribe to our podcast on all major platforms that are possibly there. And I hope you've had a blast like us. So cheers until next time. Here's Glenton signing out, and that's Mr. KT signing out. Bye bye.